Today I'm going to show you how I make my servo mounts and motor mounts for my RC boats. You can buy motor mounts, which I have done, but I didn't like them. With all the mounting that's required, I got a little bit higher center of gravity that I wanted, and I couldn't push it back further enough in the hull forward to get my balance point where I wanted, because if I wanted to remove the motor, I couldn't. The mounting bolts would be, inside the cowl way back in there. So, and these are nice, but not really necessary. The way I make my motor mounts is with 2 pieces of aluminum, and you get 3mm screws here, and the way I mount it to the boat itself, we'll use this piece as a mock-up for this tutorial, is use T-nuts and aluminum angle and everything for mounting the servo. Alright, so let's get it. I was thinking about just doing a mock-up just to show you how it's going, but you know what? Since I have a hull just kind of sitting here waiting, it's from a previous video, let's go ahead and build an actual motor mount. Rough indeed, but I'll walk you through the whole process of making a motor mount and glassing it in. The first thing is determine how wide you need this. I figured this is long enough for here. The motor will be in here somewhere. That's enough to hold it, but we need to figure out how wide we should have it in here. You grab a tape measure, or just figure out how wide you want it. And I figure about that wide should be good, right? I mean, there's no exact science in this. So what are we talking? 3 inches wide? Let's go over to the bandsaw and cut that at 3 inches. Cleaned up with sandpaper. This is how this will fit in there. You want it to kind of conform to the bottom of the boat. You've got square edges, and obviously the boat bottom is tilted. So you can either do this with sandpaper, some nice 60 grit or something, or if you have machinery around the shop, you just go ahead and use the machinery. Figure we've got quite a hefty angle on there, so we'll just go ahead and sand an angle.
A few moments later.
I think that's good. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is waterproof this piece of wood. It's going to be in a wet environment. It's got to be waterproof, and if you don't do it, it's going to rot. Don't ask me how I know that. I just know. But just 2 methods. Just some slow cure epoxy. Got this from Hobby King. You mix that up, half and half, and mix it up in a little cup. And then you add some acetone and stir it around. Like almost a paint, like a runny paint type consistency. And then you take a brush, whether it be a brush like this, just those little horsehair cheapy brushes, and then you just let it all soak in there. Or you can do it with fiberglass resin, also with the resin and the hardener. Mix it up and then add acetone. After it's all mixed up, you add the acetone and get that thin paint-like consistency and put it on. Both methods work great. I'm not going to do it because it takes 24 hours to dry, and I don't want to take 2 days to make this video. I will, however, since it's going to be a real motor mount, I will waterproof this after I'm done making the motor mount, so it's not all for naught. Alright, next, first thing, the motor and the aluminum angle. Before I became a truck driver, I was a machinist, so I have fancy things like this around. I use the term machinist quite loosely, but since I should be using this to measure distances between holes and all that good stuff, I'm not going to do it because not everyone has one of these. So I'm going to show you how I do it without this. Normally I would use this, but we'll give a crack at it without it. I suppose I could go over a list of materials that I'll be using. The 1/4 inch plywood, 6/32 socket head cap screws, 1/8 inch drill bit, 5/32 drill bit if needed, and a 5/16 drill bit, 3mm screws, which I'll have to cut down for the motor because they are too long. I'll show you how to do that. Some washers, some 1.5" by 1.5" aluminum angle, 256 socket head cap screws, tap, and a 5/64 drill. Okay, first thing I'll be doing is marking out where the holes excuse me, should go in the motor, or where the holes should go in the aluminum for the motor. I'm going to be using the 3mm screws, so without using my fancy equipment, let's get some light on this. There we go. Kind of line that up, parallel it to the holes, and then, you know, you want to leave a little bit of space. You know, it's just off center, so the bottom of the the bottom of the angle would be the bottom of the water jacket. So line that up. Get that lined up and make a mark. And make a mark. Now they're very light marks, but we'll get them a little darker here in a second. Just kind of hold it there and there. Alright, now we got to figure out the spacing for the other direction. So what we'll end up doing is we'll be taking a file and filing out a notch in this to accommodate for the drive nut. So let's just go ahead and do that now. I'll use a Dremel. I'll just come back and when it's done. Alright, I've made my notch. Alright, I made my notch, which it will end up, where's my holes at? Yeah, right about there. You kind of just slide it down a little bit. Look about where the hole has to be placed. It's right about there. And then we'll draw our lines to there. To there. Not very machinist-like, but if you don't have the tools, you do what you can. Alright, now we're going to center punch them, and then we'll go ahead and drill them. There we go. Now to match these holes up with the next piece, we just go ahead and put them together like that. Make sure they're all lined up. And clamp them together. Ready to drill.
A few moments later.
Now, the moment of truth. See if it actually goes into the motor. Alright, let's see how I did. Well, drop screws all around, yeah. That one lines up. Boy, I screwed that up, didn't I? Wow. Yeah. But that's no big deal. I mean, just take the Dremel and even it out. But the holes line up. So that's the important part. That's the important part. And now let's see if we can straighten this out. So, give me a center line there to work off from. Then we'll go back over with the Dremel and dig out another hole. There, that's a lot better. That one's a little weird knob long, but it's alright. Alright, let's shoot for the other holes. Our mounting holes that will be going into this and into this. This is the interesting part. For this, you just make a couple holes. Right down the dang center. Right down the dang center, and I don't know. What do you figure? About that far in? And that far down? Maybe? Let's go center punch those, get those drilled out with the 3/16 drill bit, and I'll show you why 3/16 in a little bit. Now, since I am not using any of my precision equipment, my holes are kitty-wampus, but they're mirror imaged. So, let's get this mounted. Oh, I have to show you what to do in case your bolts are too long. This 3mm bolt here is way too long for this motor. Don't go overzealous here. Alright? You'll feel it tighten up, but what you are tightening up against are the windings of the motor. So, we need to figure out how much we need to cut off of this. So if we account for the thickness of the aluminum and where we need to seat it down to, we need to take off, I would say, double the thickness of this aluminum. Double the thickness. To do that, you drop the bolt all over the place. Get a 3mm nut. Very important. 3mm nut. All I have is nylox. I think all I have is nylox. Nope, I got a regular one here. 3mm nut. Now, two thicknesses of this is going to be a 1/4 inch. So we take our tape measure. And we need to leave a 1/4 inch from the bottom of the nut. We got a 1/2 inch there. Take a 1/4 inch. We got to leave a 1/4 inch. So let's do that. Very simple. About half. About half. Yeah, about half. Get that right up to the middle of the jaw. Make sure we're about half. And snip. Now, the reason for the nut is so we can straighten them threads out while this thing's backing out. And I got tight there. So we can take a back that out, and the threads will straighten out. And then they will go nice and smoothly into the motor. Nice and smooth. Alright, getting into the mounting of the engine, of the motor. The reason we needed 3/16 holes in here was to accommodate the T-nut. I'll show you why in just a minute. But first, let's square this up, line this up on this board. 1/2 inch, 5/8 on that side. 5/8 on that side. Kind of just eyeball it down the center. And then we got our mounting holes. We're just going to fill them out. Now you're probably wondering why there's a Forstner bit here. That is to recess the back of the T-nut into the wood. This is where a drill press comes in handy because you can set the depth. But since I'm doing this the archaic way, push that in there, give it a tap with the hammer. What you want to eventually end up doing is having the end of the T-nut stick through the plywood, but not any thicker and not any deeper than that. So you've got locating, so it becomes a locating pin is what it does. So I'll get that all done and I'll show you. Alright, they're in there, but if you notice my mistake, I put the Fortuner holes on the wrong side, so I'll just re-bevel this side. But now what we're left with is locating holes that fit on there. It makes it much easier to line up your 6/32. I don't have the right tool with me, but that's how this is going to go right here. Normally I would use socket head cap screws, but I seem to be out at the moment. There you go. And that, and then you go ahead. You go ahead and put all the rest of them in, of course. And then you can glass this in way up in there to get room for batteries and whatnot, but you still have room to get at your bolts to remove your motor, which is why you couldn't do that with this one, because if the motor was way back in there, you wouldn't be able to get to it, which is the reason I chose this method here. And once that is once you've got, before you glass this in, you want to take it, what I do is I just take a crescent wrench, unmount it from the board, take a crescent wrench and bend these up, because it's just aluminum, it'll bend pretty easily, to get your angle of the motor. You know what I mean? Get them wires out of the way here. That way you get your angle of the motor so it's, you know, angled down towards your, assembly. So, oh, maybe I'll show you that right now. I'll just do that right now. Nah, this is how I do it. You can see I bent that one a little bit already. But I'll give it a little more. It kind of bends it at the hole, but it doesn't matter too much. Just as long as they're both the same. I did forget to add, though, when you put these T-nuts in here, drop a little bit of Gorilla Glue so they remain, and then you go ahead and glass over them before you mount it in the boat. But now see, we have an angle on the motor. It doesn't take much. So the servo is pretty much straightforward. You take two pieces of, I won't bore you with the details, but pretty much the same thing for drilling, except you use a 5/64 drill bit in here. And what you do, and you make the same holes in the bottom as we did the motor mount. And what you do is you just kind of line it up where you want it to be, where you want the servo to be. Mark it, drill it, tap it, and there you have a servo mount. So hopefully that helps any builders out that don't have access to fancy mounts or fancy equipment. It just takes, you know, a couple drill bits and, you know, some work, and you can have a very sturdily mounted motor and steering servo for your RC boat. So thanks for watching.